station. Green light. We're deploying to the war zone. Use your tac map to hunt down the rest of them. Use your tac map to hunt down the rest of them. Fire sale active. Buy station prices have been reduced. We're in the safe zone. Window is about to close. Fire sales done. map to hunt down the rest of them. It's down to 10. Win this thing. Here's mine. You still have squad mates outside the safe zone. An enemy squad is hunting you. Stay sharp. Shake it off and keep pushing. Gas closing in.
Yes bro, send me request. Wait.
Alright, so today we're diving into Warzone mobile.
Okay.
And, it's been a bit of a bumpy road, shall we say.
It has been a bit of a roller coaster ride.
Everyone was so excited about this, getting console quality action on their phones.
Yeah, the promise was huge, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it just hasn't quite panned out that way.
No, it hasn't lived up to those expectations.
There are tons of people complaining online about optimization issues, bugs,
Yeah.
and a battle royale mode that feels more like you're playing against bots than actual people.
It does feel a bit like you've wandered into a bot convention sometimes.
Ouch.
Not exactly the competitive experience players were hoping for.
No, not at all. So let's start with those optimization issues.
Okay.
What I've seen online is people complaining about lag and frame drops.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to matter if they're using the latest iPhone or something a little older.
Right. It's impacting players across the board.
So what's going on there?
Well, the performance issues are pretty widespread.
All right.
And it's interesting because it's affecting both high-end and low-end devices.
Oh, wow. So even if you have the latest phone, you're still having problems.
Yeah, some players with high-end devices are actually reporting up to a 50% decrease in frame rate since the last update.
Oh, wow. It's a huge drop.
It is. And imagine trying to track an enemy in a firefight with that kind of lag.
Yeah, you're going to get destroyed.
Pretty much. And then there's the overheating.
Oh, yeah. Phone's getting hot enough to fry an egg on.
It can get pretty bad. And then on top of that, you've got the crashes,
Yeah.
which can boot you out of a match at the worst possible moment.
Oh, man, that's the worst.
Yeah.
Like, you're just about to win, and then bam, you're out.
It's incredibly frustrating.
So it's like the game's demanding a hardware upgrade just to function properly.
It feels that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, you'd think with all the resources they have, the developers would make optimization a top priority.
You would think so.
Right.
I mean, one potential solution could be a more dynamic scaling system.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
So imagine the game automatically adjusting the graphic settings based on your touch speed.
Okay, so like if you have an older phone, it would lower the texture.
Exactly. That way you wouldn't need the latest phone just to have a smooth experience.
That makes a lot of sense.
But so far, the updates haven't really been good.
So it's like adding insult to injury. You're struggling to play, and then the updates designed to fix things might actually be making them worse.
Yeah, that's definitely a common sentiment among players.
And speaking of frustrating, let's talk about those bugs and glitches. We're not just talking about minor visual quirks here. These are game-breaking issues.
Right, these are issues that fundamentally disrupt your gameplay.
Yeah, like the gyroscope issue, for example.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
It's not just a minor inconvenience.
No, it makes aiming incredibly difficult for players who rely on gyro controls.
So how does that work? I mean, is it just a calibration issue or something?
It's a bit more complicated than that. The problem stems from the game's inability to properly translate the gyro data into in-game movement.
Okay.
There's a noticeable delay between your physical movement and what happens on screen.
So it's like the game's understanding of your movements is lagging behind what you're actually doing.
Exactly. It's like trying to dance with someone who's always a step behind the beat.
And unfortunately, it sounds like this gyro problem isn't an isolated incident.
It's not. We've seen a whole host of bugs and glitches pop up.
Like what?
Well, remember the infamous black screen bug?
Oh yeah, the one where you basically load into a match and then poof, nothing.
Exactly, just darkness.
That must have been infuriating.
It was, and it rendered the game unplayable for a lot of players.
For how long?
It took them a while to fix it.
Oh, man.
And then there was the cloud storage bug.
What?
The cloud storage bug.
What did that do?
It was bad. Wiped out players' progress.
What do you mean wiped out their progress?
So players who had invested hours unlocking attachments to each feature, they suddenly found themselves back at square one.
Wait, so all their attachments
Locked.
Oh no. What? So the game just deleted all their hard work?
Pretty much. It was a major It was. And what's concerning is that these aren't just one-off occurrences.
Right.
These bugs, while frustrating in their own way, they point to a larger problem. A disconnect between the developers and the players.
You're right. There's a definite pattern emerging here. It's like with every attempted fix,
Yeah.
they're creating new problems.
And the players are the ones left dealing with the fault.
Right. It raises the question of whether they're even testing these updates properly.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, you'd think with a game of this magnitude, they would have a robust testing process in place.
Right. You don't want to be releasing updates that are just going to make things worse.
Exactly.
What could they do differently?
Well, one potential solution is to implement a more comprehensive beta testing program.
Okay.
Where players can opt in to test new features and updates before they're released to the general public.
Oh, that's a good idea. So they can catch these bugs before they affect everyone?
Exactly. This would allow the developers to gather feedback and identify potential issues early on.
Yeah, because gamers are pretty good at finding bugs.
They are. It's like they have a sixth sense for it.
So it's a win-win. Players get early access, and the developers get valuable feedback.
It could be easy.
So let's move on to the mode that was supposed to be the heart and soul of Warzone. Battle Royale.
Okay.
Now, instead of facing off against skilled opponents, many players find themselves in lobbies dominated by bots.
It's a real problem.
I've heard people complaining about this. It sounds like players who are hoping for a competitive experience.
It is. It undermines the whole premise of Battle Royale.
Right, which is all about pitting players against each other in a fight for survival.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, why are there so many bots?
Yeah, is it a population issue?
Well, there's a fact. Usually the optimization.
Right.
It makes it difficult for players to find matches quickly.
So you've got long queue times?
Exactly.
So we've got long queue times because of performance. That makes sense. Wouldn't that mean everyone should bot overload?
Not necessarily.
Really?
Actually prioritizes getting players into matches quickly.
Okay.
Even if it means filling lobbies with bots to compensate for a lack.
That's why sometimes it feels like I'm the only
It's especially noticeable at off-peak hours, or in regions with lower player populations.
So you're telling me the game is basically throwing me a bone by giving me some target practice?
In a way,
I appreciate the thought, but that's not exactly what I signed up for.
yeah, it's not the ideal scenario for players seeking a competitive challenge.
Not at all. Imagine you gearing up for a tense showdown, only to realize you're up against AI opponents.
It's a bit of a letdown.
Is it playing on easy mode?
Kind of. Takes away the thrill of the competition.
Right, because the whole point of Battle Royale is to outsmart and outplay other human players.
Exactly. Not just racking up kills against particular bots.
That's what makes those victories so satisfying.
The sense of accomplishment comes from knowing you outplayed another person.
Not just a computer program. So what does the community have to say about these bots?
They're not happy.
Yeah, I bet.
Forums and social media are filled with complaints.
I can imagine.
Players feel like the developers have abandoned the competitive spirit of the game.
It's like they traded a heart-pounding Battle Royale experience
Yeah.
for a bot-infested playground.
And the frustration is compounded by the lack of communication from the developers.
Yeah. So it's not just the bots, it's the silence from the devs that's making things worse.
Exactly. Updates often arrive with minimal explanation.
Right.
And critical issues are sometimes brushed aside.
It's like they're hoping we'll just quietly accept it.
Or that we won't
But
notice.
come on, gamers are a savvy bunch.
Oh, yeah.
You can see right through that.
That lack of transparency can be incredibly damaging.
Yeah, it breeds distrust.
Players want to feel like they're part of a community.
Right.
Like their voices are being heard.
And that the developers are actually listening to their concerns.
Right.
So we've got a perfect storm brewing here.
We do.
A game riddled with technical issues. A core game mode that's been diluted by bots.
Yeah.
And a perceived lack of communication from the developers.
It's a recipe for disaster.
It is. And it begs the question, is there any hope for Warzone Mobile?
That's the big question.
Can the developers salvage what's left?
Or has the damage already been done?
I mean, before we write this game off entirely, let's examine what could be done to address these issues.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Because I think there are examples of games that have successfully recovered from similar situations.
Right, you're thinking like No
In-game
Man's Sky
sound bug, bro.
Exactly.
or Final Fantasy XIV.
Games that were on the brink of collapse, but managed to claw their way back.
And win back the community.
So let's dive into the potential solutions.
Right.
Explore what steps the developers could take to turn things around, and consider whether Warzone Mobile still has a fighting chance.
Well, let's do it. Let's start with the optimization issues.
Right.
Because it's clear that a significant portion of the player base is struggling to run the game smoothly.
And we can't just tell everyone to go out and buy a new phone.
No, definitely not.
So what are some realistic solutions the developers could implement?
Well, one approach could be to introduce more granular graphic settings.
Okay.
Give players greater control over the visual fidelity.
So like being able to tweak the texture quality or shadow detail. That way players can customize their experience based on their device's capabilities.
And their personal preferences.
Right, because some people might prioritize performance over graphics.
Exactly.
And others might want the game to look as good as possible, even if it means sacrificing some frames.
It's all about giving players choices.
And making the game accessible to a wider range of devices.
Right.
Another approach could be to optimize the game's code for lower-end hardware.
Streamlining processes.
Right.
Reducing resource usage.
Making the game leaner and meaner.
Exactly.
So it runs better on older phones.
Without compromising the core gameplay.
Okay, so that's optimization. Now what about those pesky bugs and glitches?
Okay.
I mean, we talked about the need for more thorough testing. But is there anything else they could do?
Well, they could implement a bug bounty program.
A what?
A bug bounty program.
What's that?
So it's where skilled players are rewarded for finding and reporting bugs.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Yeah, tap into the knowledge of the community.
Right, because players are already spending hours playing the game.
Exactly.
They're bound to find some glitches.
And they're usually pretty passionate about reporting.
So the players get rewarded and the developers get valuable bug reports.
It's all in the game.
Okay, so that takes care of it. Well, what about the bot infestation in Battle Royale?
Alright, let's talk about bots.
How do we get real players back into the game?
Well, addressing the optimization, bug issues.
Okay, so we need to make the game appealing before we can think about tackling the bot.
We need to improve the players.
So once those technical issues are under control, Then what?
Then the developers can focus on incentivizing players who engage in Battle Royale mode.
Okay, so like, how?
Well, they can introduce special events,
Okay.
exclusive rewards,
Ooh, that's a good idea.
or even ranked ladders.
Yeah, give players a sense of progression.
Right.
Something to strive for.
Make it feel worthwhile to jump back into Battle Royale.
And hopefully attract more real players.
Yeah, exactly.
But even with all these technical fixes and gameplay enhancements,
Right.
there's one crucial element that can make or break the game's success.
And what's that?
Communication.
Yes. The glue that holds everything together.
Exactly. We talked about the lack of transparency and responsiveness from the developers. So how do we bridge that gap?
So it all starts with acknowledging the issues.
So no more sweeping things under the rug.
The developers need to openly and honestly address the concerns raised by the community and provide regular updates on their progress.
Give players a roadmap
Exactly.
so they know that things are actually moving in the right direction.
It's about building a two-way dialogue.
So less dictating and more collaborating,
Precisely.
and actively solicit feedback from players.
Create avenues for them to share their thoughts and suggestions.
Open up those communication channels.
Make players feel like they're part of the solution.
Yeah, this all sounds very promising, but is it realistic?
And the developers actually pull this off.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to ask.
It's a monumental task.
We need to basically hit the reset button. And we commit to creating a game that lives up to the hype.
It's a make or break moment for Warzone Mobile.
It really is.
Yeah.
So will they
Come to the weight of their past mistakes.
Okay, so we've laid out the challenges, explored potential solutions, but now I think we gotta answer the big question, can Warzone Mobile be saved? I mean, you came to us for this deep dive, and it doesn't seem like there's an easy answer.
No, it's not. Part of me wants to say it's far gone.
Right.
But then I remember games like No Man's Sky,
Ow!
Final Fantasy XIV,
Yeah.
titles that launched with some serious problems.
Huge problems.
But through dedicated effort, communication, everything's around.
Yeah, so the combat
It is.
is, but it's not
No, it's not just about, squashing a few bugs or tweaking some graphics.
right.
This requires a fundamental shift.
The way they approach the game.
Yeah, they need to prove to players that they're not just, listening to feedback, but they're actually doing something about it.
It's like they need to win back the trust of the community.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. They need to show that they understand what made Warzone so popular.
That competitive spirit.
Yeah.
The thrill of outplaying human opponents. A sense of fair play.
Exactly.
So if you were advising the developers, what would be your top recommendations? How do they get Warzone Mobile back on track?
Well, first and foremost, communication. Consistent, transparent communication.
What do you mean by that?
Regular updates.
So even if we don't have to.
Even if it's just to say, hey, we're still working on this.
Okay.
Here's what we're focusing on.
No more radio silence.
Nope.
No more vague promises.
Actions speak louder than words.
Right. So along with communication, we need to see action,
Exactly.
concrete steps to address the issues.
Optimization, the bugs, the bot situation.
Each update needs to feel like a step forward.
Temporary fix.
Prove to the players that they're not just talking the talk.
They're walking the walk.
And finally, community involvement.
Yeah. Bring players into the process.
Get their feedback.
Run some public beta tests.
Make them feel like they're part of the solution.
Shift the dynamic from us versus them to we're all in this together.
Okay, so let's say they do all that. They fix the bugs. They revamp Battle Royale. Is that enough to guarantee success?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Right.
There are no guarantees in the world of gaming.
Yeah.
Tastes change. New competitors emerge.
Right.
Sometimes the damage is just too deep to repair.
So even if they do everything right, there's still a chance it might not work out. So it's not as simple as just fixing the game.
Nope. But here's the thing.
Okay.
Even if Warzone Mobile doesn't achieve the success it once promised, this whole situation has been a valuable learning experience for the entire gaming industry.
How so?
It's a reminder of how important it is to listen to players,
Yeah.
to be transparent, and to remember that a game is more than just a product.
Okay.
It's a community.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? What do you want them to walk away with?
Well, I'd encourage you to think about your own relationship with Warzone. or even with gaming in general.
Okay.
What are your expectations? What are your deal breakers?
Good questions.
And how much weight do you give to a developer's actions versus their words?
I think that's something we all need to consider. You know, this deep dive wasn't just about Warzone Mobile. It was about understanding the dynamics between game developers and players,
The power of community.
and the responsibility that comes with creating a game that people are passionate about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it such a fascinating landscape.
It's always evolving.
The story of Warzone along the way.
Yeah.
Continue to shape the future of gaming.
For years to come.
For the better.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today. So thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Warzone Mobile.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, happy gaming.
Alright, so today we're diving into something pretty interesting. Warzone Mobile. And specifically, alright, so we're seeing it's a big one. Better graphics. We're talking about less bugs, performance. They even tested it on a bunch of different settings to make sure it runs well on, different phones. We've got some articles, forum posts, even data from some early play testers. What jumps out at you from all this?
You know, I think the effort to really try and tackle this is really interesting. You know, I mean, think about how frustrating the screen drops were during, really intense fights.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems like they've made some really improvements there, and that could make the game feel a lot more responsive and fair, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I've died because the game just totally lagged out at the worst possible moment. So how much does a stable frame rate actually change the game? Is it really that big of a deal?
Well, think about it this way. In a fast-paced shooter like Warzone, every millisecond, smooth 60 frames per second, means the game is reacting instantly to your inputs without any delay. And that's super important, especially where even a tiny lag can throw off the shot completely. If you're driving a finely tuned sports car and a clunky old truck, right? That responsiveness can give you a real edge in a firefight.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And they mentioned testing the update on different graphic settings, low, medium, and high. The latest, greatest phone.
Exactly. This is all about making the game accessible to a wider audience. Not everyone has to top of the line phone, super powerful phone. But by testing on different settings, they can make sure the game runs smoothly even on older or
Optimization. Wouldn't some devices still struggle with the higher graphical settings? I mean, there are limits to what you can do with older hardware.
Oh, you're absolutely right. There are always going to be limitations to some devices' capabilities. But the key here is optimization. Fine-tuning the game to, squeeze the best possible performance out of each device. It's like tailoring a suit, right? You want it to fit perfectly regardless of the person's body type.
Okay, so it's not just about making it look pretty. It's about making it run well.
Check weapons and gear. We're holding for deployment. Enemy dropping into the AR. Resurgence. All right, so mark the map, and I'm down the rest of them. Reinforcements inbound. Get ready to redeploy. Enemy reinforcements inbound. Use your sack map to hunt down the rest of them. Get ready to redeploy. Get ready. Insurgents we know is about to close. Get ready. You have reinforcements inbound. Targets invaded. Bounty contract's been pulled. You still have squad mates outside the
Bisa.
insurgents. Stay alive to keep your squad in fire. Stay sharp.